Welcome to Mental Fitness, the Gateway to Success podcast, providing business owners, leaders, and entrepreneurs with the 3 Ins: insights, inspirations, and intentional actions. Delivered through monologues and dialogues, we address topics like leadership, productivity, time management, work-life balance, and challenges like stress, conflict, mental health, and much more. Please do not hold back from suggesting specific topics and guests you would like on this podcast. Greetings, and thank you for tuning in to this next episode on my new-ish podcast. We've been going for a couple of weeks now, and it's really exciting. What I've decided to do for a number of episodes, it may not sort of be in everyone from here on, but I've decided to do a little bit of a series on a topic that is seems to at least to be very important to people, and in particular people in business and in leadership positions, and that is the topic of time management. And as you can see, the title of this first episode in that series is Time Management, a Complete Waste of Time. And you may know already, if you've followed me for a little while, that it also happens to be the title of my latest book that got published a good half year ago, Time Management, a Complete Waste of Time, for business owners, leaders, and teams. Discover a better path to less stress, more control, and inner peace. Now, why do I want to dive into that and make a series out of it? A number of reasons. One, making a series out of it is because of the reality that to actually get to the bottom of this, as they say, and really shift this whole paradigm around time management into something that is actually effective, that actually works, that shift needs to happen. And in general, it doesn't happen just like that. It is a process. It is a journey. And that's what the book actually is. It is a journey through the landscape of time and time management, and actually completely redefining it. It is a paradigm shift, hence the title, A Complete Waste of Time. So that's in part why I want to stretch it over time, so it will give you as an audience a chance to take each part and get to terms with that, work with that, really implement that in your life, and then be ready to take the next step and the next step. And no, I'm not doing this from the point of view of getting you to buy the book. Trust me. If you want to buy the book, sure. If you want to have that there to get into more detail, absolutely, that's fine. But you do not need to buy the book in order to get value from this podcast as I'm going through that. What I will recommend for you to do, though, which is absolutely free, is to go onto my website and download the action guide. This action guide is made specifically to support the journey of the book. It has a lot of got forms in it. It got things to fill in, and you can do what I do. I download these things onto my tablet and do it on a tablet, or you can print it out like this. And it's just another way of supporting you in creating the shifts that I believe that you wouldn't be listening to this if you don't want to make some positive shifts in your life. I'm also going to make it in such a way that you don't have, and if you listen to this today and think, well, I have to listen to all the other ones that are coming, you don't. I will make each episode valuable in and of itself. So if somebody comes in and listens to the 3rd episode in this series, there will still be specific value out of that. Each episode will have some suggested actions to go with it, so you can come into it at any point in time. Another reason for writing the book, which turns out to be the same reason for this podcast. Again, to make money from writing books. I've written a number of books, published the first one well over 20 years ago. And I think the statistics say something like less than 1%, actually quite a lot less than 1% of authors end up actually being able to make a living out of writing books. So I definitely did not write this book or any of my other books from the point of view of making a living from writing books. Same with this podcast. So why am I doing this? Why am I putting all this effort, time, and money into creating these things? And I'm doing that essentially because it feeds my soul. Yeah. What is really important to me in my life is to share and support other people, is to make this world a better place in a way. And by sharing learning and insights I have had, things like shifting time management completely from being utterly stressed into where I am today, where stress is pretty much non-existent in my life. I know it is possible to make those shifts. I know it's possible to shift from being deeply depressed to have no depression in my life. I have done that, and I just want to share that with people who care to listen, people who would like to make some shift in their life. Whether it is time management issues or depression, doesn't matter. Whatever the challenge is, the underlying way of shifting things is actually the same. And that's why I have that podcast, why I have written this book and a number of other books along the way. Um, it gives me deep fulfillment in delivering this and in sharing these things. So that in itself is value enough for me. Then if you take this on board and it helps you and it makes a difference to you, that is absolutely awesome. That is the main reason for being here. And then if you tell me you're doing that, it's even better because then I get to hear that actually it is working. So it's always wonderful when I get emails or letters or calls from people who have been on these journeys with me, or listened to something or read a book, and you're picking up something that is working. That is, of course, appreciated. So why focus on this right now at this moment in time, 2025? Why focus on time management as a topic? The reason is that time management seems to be a huge issue or problem or challenge for most people, particularly people who are in places of leadership, people running their own businesses, entrepreneurs. So when I did my research for this book, interviewing many business leaders, it was fascinating for me to hear from some of these extremely successful business people the struggles that they are having with time management, what those struggles are, and what it is that they would like to change, or where they see that they can make some progress and becoming more. It's almost always about becoming more productive and becoming more effective. And I'm going to poke a hole into that as well, because yes, I understand that. And yes, I agree. There's nothing wrong with becoming more efficient and more productive. But in my experience, there is something underneath that that is even more important to people. And often they are not aware of that until it gets pointed out. And then it's like, oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So why not go straight to that place and really look at what is it really you want out of so-called time management? And when that becomes clear, then we can go straight to that and actually create that which you really truly want in your life. And then time management in and of itself takes on a whole different meaning. And I guess this is why the title is Time Management, a Complete Waste of Time. So I do want to go into why that is in this episode, and then we will dive into some more specific action points along the way. And I want to just read out a list that's in the beginning of the book. And again, it is to answer that question, why focus on time management? Because what is it? What are the issues and challenges people are having that they somehow believe that time management will help them fix, which it won't, but we'll come to that. So here we go. If you are like most leaders, small business owners, and teams, you're probably dealing with several of the following. Stress. Not enough time in the day for the important stuff. Not enough quality time with your family. Not enough quality time with yourself. Frustration with your calendar being mucked up by staff and customers. Too many distractions and interruptions in your perfectly planned day. Struggling to keep on top of emails. Fear of not creating a success you truly want. Spinning too many plates. Fear of not reaching your goals and dreams. Working hard but not feeling productive, frequently procrastinating, fear of missing out, or do not feel you're reaching your full potential. So we could add more to that, but I think that's a comprehensive list enough at this moment in time. And then for some reason, we expect that time management is what we need to do to deal with that. Um, it's not. So I just want to take a quote from the book. It's a short one by John Wanamaker. And he says, people who cannot find time for recreation are obliged sooner or later to find time for illness. And unfortunately, that turns out to be true in my experience, both in my own personal life and with the hundreds of people that I have coached and business, particularly business people that I've seen over the last 16, 17 years, that if we do not shift our focus away from the hamster wheel, from running at 100 miles an hour, trying to create all this success, running businesses, serving the world, and so on. If we cannot stop and have a holiday, have time out, look after ourselves, look after our family, friends, hobbies, and so on. If we can't do that and we end up in that stress, you can be super busy without the stress. But in my experience, most people who are super busy in the world of business are also stressed to whatever degree. And your body is physically not made to do that consistently. It can do it for short periods of time, fine, but it can't do it month after month, year after year. Eventually, it breaks down and we more easily get sick. Our immune system gets compromised. Um, Many people I work with, they're not sleeping very well. They're not eating very well. Some drink a little bit too much at night just to calm the mind down and get a good sleep. And all of that is a spiral, a downward spiral that eventually crashes in some shape or form. Sometimes really big, sometimes not so big, but crashing nevertheless. And I don't want that for anybody. And it is possible to avoid that, but not by becoming better at time management. It's becoming better at something entirely different. So why do I say that time management doesn't work? One, because it is my clear experience in my own life. From At some point, my wife and I remember years, couple of decades ago, the kids were little and she was busy. I was busy. I was running my business. I was traveling around the country all the time. And we were looking at our calendars and at least we made a good decision. And that was like, as parents, um, what we have to do as parents is we have to look after ourselves. We have to look after our relationship, our marriage, because the marriage is the foundation for the family. The children are not the foundation for the family. The relationship came first, and the relationship will carry on when the children leave home. So it's a relationship that is a foundation. And if we were not going to look after our relationship, then the kids will end up suffer in the long run, and so would we. So it's not that we ignored the kids at all, but we made a promise to ourselves to, right from when they were babies, to have date nights and booking time out for ourselves. And initially we would do it at home, and as soon as we could get babysitters in, we did that. And remember this one day, we were looking at our calendars to book in our next date night. And the first evening we both had available to have a date night was 3 weeks into the future. And that's where, in that moment, I looked at my wife and I say, this won't do. And that is where I had this realization. This is ridiculous. I have got to make some change. I have got to do things differently. And if family and relationship and marriage is that important to me, I should be able to have a date night. Oh, let's do it tonight. Let's do it tomorrow. Which these days we can pretty much do like that. But back in those days, we couldn't. And then I started working on it, starting on shifting that, which made a tremendous difference in the relationship and in the so-called time management. So based on my own experience, what shifted here for me to be able to fit a date night in and book that in just within days was not a shift in time management. It was a shift in priority management. I'll say that again. It was a shift in priority management, which essentially comes down to one thing at the end of it. It was a shift in self-management. So if you want to remove stress out of your life and become more efficient and more relaxed, more effective, make less mistakes, have better sleeps, and have a better marriage and family, you will not get that by getting better at managing your time. You will get that by becoming better at managing yourself and your own mind state, and having an absolute clarity on what it is that is truly important to you. So people will come to me and ask, so what's important to you? Oh, they say, oh, this is important, this is important. And then they're telling me all this stress they're having, these challenges and all of this, which is over here. And that's where they put all the energy in because they think they have to do that. And then I go, you just told me that this over here was more important to you than this over here. So why are you spending all your time here? And I understand the logical answer to that. But the reality is, if this is truly more important to you, that's where you need to focus. And I'm not saying you should focus on that. What I'm saying is be absolutely honest with yourself, truly honest with yourself of what it really is that is most important to you at this moment in time. And then go to that. And then as things move and change, then that might shift and then that might shift, and it's a journey. And you won't be able to make those decisions by buying a time management system because that's not the focus on time management systems. Time management systems are great when you know where you're going and your life, you created a sense of strong purpose and direction, and you know the important components of your life in which you have to function well. I think it's work, it might be health, it might be hobbies, it might be friends, whatever those areas are for you. And when you're really clear on what those are, then you can focus on that. And then it is so much easier to decide what are the actions I'm going to take today. And then those actions you can put into a so-called time management system. That helps you. And you can use any system you like. I have created my own that I started using and teaching, and that entire structure is in the book as well. But it's at the very end because it's the least important part of it. So that's one reason that time management doesn't work. Another reason is, you could say, is a more, we could call it philosophical reason. So I want to share that as well. So when you want to manage something, whether it's a farm or a business, a ship, in order to be not only a good manager of that, but a great manager at that, you must understand that which you are managing. So the more you understand what you're managing, the more likely you are to become a good manager of that. It's not enough, but it's a start. If you know nothing about money and you want to manage money, it's going to be a hard road. So therefore, if you want to manage time, doesn't it make sense to study time and understand time itself? And I can pose the question to you, how many books can you show me that dives into the depth of time itself? And you're going to be really hard pressed to find one. Mhm. This one does. And it does that because I did that myself. Somewhere along the way in this journey, I went, okay, there is a challenge out there in the world with time management. It was in my life. What did I change and how did I make those changes happen? In part, it happened because a part of me, being the curious kind of guy I am and want to take things apart and understand them, I had already starting to take time apart and try to understand time from actually very early on without really consciously knowing at the time. So at some point in time, I then made a point out of studying that and starting reading books that are and listening to people that specifically talk about time itself, not the time management, time itself. And in that, I then came across quite a number of spiritual teachers or so-called enlightened people that said time doesn't exist. And it's like, huh? Really? Well, well, maybe. Well, at some level, that kind of made sense to me at that point, but I needed to dive deeper into that, so I did. Also came across Einstein, who said the same thing. So here we got an incredible scientist, and we got spiritual teachers here that are saying the same thing. So I started really paying attention. And a long story short, I came to experience the truth of that. Not just an intellectual understanding of it, but actual real life experiences in my life of the reality that time actually doesn't exist. And I personally had to come to that place of experience and then going back from that back into being able to intellectually rationalize that and explain that. So if time itself doesn't exist, then that explains why time management doesn't work. Because time is actually an illusion. And you can't manage an illusion. You can't manage something that is not there. And yes, time exists by the clock. You say, oh, 5 minutes just passed, or we're going to meet tomorrow at 2 o'clock, or yeah. And the earth is spinning and it takes 24 hours, or we call it 24 hours. So time only exists in our mind as a concept, as an idea. And in a future episode in this series, I will dive into that and give you some very clear examples of the truth of that. Right now, for today, in order for this not to get too long, I'm going to leave it at that in terms of that idea. And it's really, really powerful to grasp the truth of that because it puts so-called time management into its rightful place. It has a place, but we must put it in its right place in order for it to be effective. One last quick kind of proof that so-called time management doesn't work. And if I ask you the question, how much has time changed over the last 200 years? The answer is it hasn't changed at all. It still takes the Earth the same amount of time to do a rotation. It still takes the Earth around the Sun the same amount of time. And we have, as human beings, created a structure so we can talk about it. Say a year is reflection of that. A month is this. A day is this. And we have divided a day into 12 hours or 12, 14, 24 hours. We call it slightly different, but no, 24 hours, an hour into 60 minutes, and so on. And that's super practical. That doesn't mean time exists, but it's a practical measurement that we have created so we can communicate, show up in the same place for meetings and go on international travels. And that's all perfectly fine. But to write books about managing something that hasn't changed at all, why do we need to keep writing books about that? Economy change, cultures change, business change. So you can keep writing books about those things that can keep being relevant in the current market situation we're in, the current political landscape that we are in. But there is no need to write more books about something that hasn't changed for thousands of years. Really? We only need one or two books, couple, two or three books that are really good, that are nailing it. And that's all we need. Just read those books and do what they say. And you'll be fine. But we have thousands and thousands of books. And there are new ones coming out every week on something that is the same that it was 200 years ago. We have now endless number of apps, software, podcasts, courses, you name it, about time management. So if all of those books and all of those things, that some of that has been around for over 100 years, some of them have been around for 20, 30 years. AI systems now haven't been around for that long, but none of that is actually going to solve the core underlying challenges that you have with time management, because it is not a time management issue. We do not need more books, and this is not a book on time management. Mm. It is so much more than that. And I want to take you through that journey because to me, it changed my life. And I find it a very fascinating, deeply fulfilling um, journey. And then I will have to, before finishing today, I have to address one more thing, which is, so what on earth has that got to do with mental fitness? Isn't this a mental fitness podcast? Mental fitness, the gateway to success. Absolutely. It has everything to do with mental fitness. It actually has more to do with mental fitness than it has to do with time management. So if you are not capable at this moment in time in completely following a great time management book or structure that you already have, it is not because the book is shit. Or it could be the case, but most likely not. It's not because your time management system is at fault or is bad. Could be, but most likely not. The problem is not the book or the time management system. I'm sorry to say, the problem is you. Yeah. It is us not being able to implement the things that somebody says, if you do this and this and this and this and this, you will be stress-free and you will be able to have time with the family, you have great work-life balance or whatever it is you want in your life. So if you're not able to create that currently with the book and systems that you have in time management, it is because you do not currently have the mental fitness level required to put it into practice. Whether it is getting fit and going to the gym, there's plenty of gym programs, gym coaches. If that's what you want, but you're not doing it, it's not the fault of the gym or the gym coach or the trainer. It is the fault of you because there's something within you that is stopping you from following through on creating the health you want, the marriage you want, the family you want, the finances you want, the businesses you want, the teams in your business that you want. And what is required to follow through on that without getting worked up and stressed and frustrated and angry. That is all about mental fitness. So time management fits into that perfectly. I'm going to wrap this up now, and what I'm going to do in the next episode in this series is going into the 7+1 myth about time management. And we will dive into those, and I know that you will be able to recognize most of those, if not all of them, at least most of them in your how you have unconsciously, like I did, have bought into these myths, thinking that they are true. And I will pull them apart and show that they are not. And that is the beginning of starting to let go of this notion that most of us are holding around time management and get in touch with that, which it is really truly about. That place where you start creating a much deeper level of fulfillment in your life. With that, thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you in future episodes around this topic. And any feedback you want to give, that will be fantastic. If there's anything specific around this time management that you go, hey, could you talk in on that? Or I'm experiencing this. What is your take on that? And maybe I can find a guest that I can bring on board that can elaborate and make it more interesting as well. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Mental Fitness, the Gateway to Success. If you have stories of how mental fitness has benefited you that you are happy to share, go to my website, Mikal Nielsen, click on podcast and fill in the guest application form. If you want direct support from me utilizing my 40 years of mental fitness learning and practice, email me at coach@mikal.nz or message me on LinkedIn. Any feedback, review, share, follow, like, or any other good stuff is of course appreciated. Thank you for listening to Mental Fitness, the Gateway to Success podcast. I'm your host, Mikal Nielsen.